David Fuller, aka the Morgue Monster, to fulfill his necrophiliac acts, killed 2 women and had sex with multiple dead bodies. Midway through 2020, British media reported on a confusing and tragic accident on the outskirts of London. Azra Kamal, a 24-year-old Turkish woman, was driving her vehicle at 2:30 a.m. on July 16 when it caught fire. Azra Kamal and Omar Allen managed to escape unharmed. Azra continued to the other side of the highway to seek help. Unfortunately, she didn't realize there was a drop of 10 meters between the lanes, and she fell and was declared dead almost an hour later. David Fuller, born in 1954, is a father of 4 who lived in Heathfield, East Sussex, working mostly as an electrician at hospitals in Kent and Sussex. He married 3 times and also worked as a photographer for the London rock band Cutting Crew. Since news of his crimes, she has revealed how she met Fuller when she was 27, enjoying cocktails at a hospital and nights out, including at a Beverly Craven concert. Perverted fantasies of following and spying on women through windows led David Fuller to commit gruesome acts, ultimately murdering 2 of them. He discovered a strong desire towards engaging in sexual acts with lifeless bodies. Whether due to cowardice, convenience, or the complexity of committing murder, Fuller chose to seek employment in a hospital to gain access to morgues and satisfy his necrophilic urges. Fuller not only abused the bodies but also recorded himself violating them, took degrading photos, and kept a record of all mortuary information obtained from their identification bracelets. He would later search for their profiles on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. The video and photo files showed that he sexually abused women and girls in different stages of decomposition, whether they died from natural causes, suicide, or accidents, even before or after undergoing autopsy procedures. With the data Fuller had compiled, investigators identified 78 of the 102 corpses recorded in the videos and photos. This incident raised concerns about the safety measures of the Kent road system, prompting calls for an investigation. On June 23, 1987, the body of Wendy Nell, a 25-year-old woman, was found in the room she rented in Werford Road, Tunbridge Wells, England. Her boyfriend, Ian Place, stated that he visited her that morning. She didn't answer the door. He became worried and decided to enter through a window, only to discover her lifeless body naked on the bed. Wendy had been repeatedly struck on the head with a blunt object and strangled to death. There were no signs of defensive wounds, and the bedroom was relatively orderly, indicating that the intruder attacked her while she was asleep. Evidence of sexual assault was apparent, but the bloodstain patterns on the bed sheets drew attention. It seemed as if the killer had repositioned the body multiple times during the abuse. The autopsy revealed traces of semen in the vagina, rectum, and mouth of the corpse, suggesting post-mortem penetration. The only clues at the crime scene were a bloodied and almost unrecognizable fingerprint on a shopping bag and a footprint on the victim's blouse. On December 15 of the same year, the decomposed body of a 20-year-old woman, Caroline Price, was found in a drainage ditch. She had gone missing 3 weeks earlier. November 24, when she was returning to her home in Ross Park, the corpse was discovered. On that night, neighbors claimed to have heard a woman's screams and looked out of their windows, but they couldn't spot anyone. Although Pierce's disappearance was reported the next day, the police couldn't find any clues to help solve the case. The young woman had been repeatedly struck on the head with a blunt object and showed signs of strangulation on her neck. She was found in the fetal position, naked from the waist up. While lacking underwear, she still had a pair of stockings on, from which forensics retrieved semen residue, indicating a presumed sexual assault. This discovery quickly unsettled the authorities because, even though the modus operandi wasn't identical to Wendy Nell's case, detectives were sure it was the same murderer, mainly due to the victims' profiles and the type of injuries inflicted. Both girls worked on Camden Road and lived in individually rented rooms, leading the press to dub these as the bedroom murders. More than 80 agents were assigned to the investigation, but no progress was made. Despite the semen samples found on the corpses, there was no genetic database at the time, and they couldn't identify the killer through DNA testing. The police would have to wait almost 34 years to solve the case. The UK National DNA Database was created in 1995. Investigators obtained a genetic profile of the aggressor in Wendy Nell's case. However, the sample didn't yield any matches. Thanks to this tool, in 2001, American Gary Ridgway was arrested and accused of being responsible for the Green River murders, a prominent case from the early 80s that had remained unsolved for decades. DNA testing's success led police globally to revisit cold cases, aiming to apprehend long-elusive criminals. In 2019, the semen remnants from Wendy Nell and Caroline Price's bodies were analyzed, confirming they fell prey to the same killer. Despite no match in the DNA database for sex offenders, approximately 90 individuals had partially similar genetics. Researchers pinpointed a man named Fuller, whose DNA closely matched that discovered at the crime scenes. Upon investigating his family, they discovered that he had a brother named David Fuller, 66 years old, who lived close to the crime areas. Additionally, he had a criminal record for robbery for which he hadn't been imprisoned. Authorities didn't hesitate to issue a warrant for the suspect's arrest. On the morning of December 3, 2020, the police showed up at David Fuller's house and arrested him for his alleged involvement in the murders of Wendy Nell and Caroline Price. Although he initially denied being responsible, new tests confirmed that his DNA matched the semen found on both corpses. Faced with the evidence, he had no choice but to confess. Not only were his fingerprints the same as those found at Wendy Nell's crime scene, but a search of his home found a couple of family photos from the time showing him wearing a pair of sneakers. These shoes perfectly matched the bloodstains on the victim's blouse. It was proven that Fuller had frequented Camden Road, the area where both young women worked, during the dates of the murders. Among his belongings, there were receipts from Supa's Snaps, a photo development store, and a restaurant named Buster Brown's, where Wendy Nell and Caroline Price worked in 1987. This suggested that Fuller might have followed them for days and knew they lived alone. The mysterious case of the bedroom murders was finally solved. However, investigators encountered an unpleasant surprise after searching David Fuller's residence. Fuller had a collection of violent pornography, including the torture and abuse of underage individuals, amounting to over 14 million images of sexual crimes on CDs and USB devices. 4 hidden hard drives were found behind a piece of furniture with over 100,000 videos and photos from 2007 to 2020. These depicted Fuller engaging in sexual abuse with a minimum of 102 different corpses of women and girls. The horrifying images shocked detectives, and a new investigation was immediately launched. It was revealed that David Fuller worked from 1989 to 2010 in the electrical maintenance department of Kent Hospital and later at Cambridge Hospital until his arrest. As an electrician, he had access to all facilities, including the morgue. The police were compelled to visit all the relatives of those individuals who, after death, became victims of Fuller. This included Uzra Kamal, the 24-year-old Turkish woman, and others affected. Fuller not only had access to hospital morgues but also knew the schedules of doctors and janitorial staff. He was familiar with blind spots and areas without security cameras, allowing him to commit abuses without detection. In late 2021, David Fuller was found guilty of 51 crimes related to the abuse of the 78 identified corpses in the recordings, along with the 1987 murders of Wendy Nell and Caroline Price. He was sentenced to life in prison. In December 2022, Fuller accepted 12 more charges for sexual abuse of corpses and 4 charges for extreme pornography, adding an additional 4 years to his sentence. The case remains under development, with 81 of the 102 desecrated corpses identified. Families suspecting their loved ones may have been victims of Fuller can call a dedicated hotline. British police believe the final victim count could be in the thousands. Fuller's ability to evade authorities for over 3 decades and hide repugnant secrets without arousing suspicion is unsettling. His perverse preferences, which included collecting explicit violent material, suggest a sadistic nature unsatisfied with necrophilia alone. During the trial, it was revealed that many of Fuller's internet searches involved torture and murder videos, leading psychologists to consider him a sadist who may have killed other women. Attempts to link him to crimes in 1980 and 1986 have faced challenges due to a lack of evidence. What are your thoughts about the story? Considering the story's conclusion, do you think there are still unresolved aspects or potential unknown victims in this case? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to follow for more crime stories.